Welcome to Catalytic Leadership, the podcast designed to help leaders intentionally grow and thrive. Here is your host, author, and leadership and executive coach, Dr. William Attaway.
Hey, it's William, and welcome to episode 10 of our first season of the Catalytic Leadership podcast. Each week, we tackle a topic related to the field of leadership. My goal is to make sure that you have actionable steps that you can take from each episode to grow in your own leadership. As I've heard Craig Groeschel say so many times, when a leader gets better, everybody benefits. Their team, their department, their customers, their clients, their spouse, their kids, everybody. Today, we're going to do what we do every other week, which is interview a leader that I'm calling a Catalytic Leader Spotlight. So today, you'll get the opportunity and the privilege to hear from Tommy Chamblee. So today, it is an honor to talk with Tommy Chamblee. Tommy is the CEO of First American National Bank in Fulton, Mississippi. But that's not where he started. His journey has been one filled with twists and turns. And hearing his story over lunch, I knew I wanted this to be one that we shared on the podcast as one of our first interviews. Tommy, thank you so much for joining me today. It is an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you, William. Appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak with you this morning.
I'd love for you to share some of your story with our listeners, particularly about your journey and your development as a leader. How did you get started?
Well, I don't have a perfect answer. I've kind of sort of gotten the way along the path of my professional life, I guess. I've seen a quote one time that said the most essential element of leadership is a talent. It's choosing to lead right where you are. I guess I've gotten most of my leadership lessons from unintentional leaders. My parents were both janitors. My dad had an 8th grade education. My mom had a 7th grade education, and they both retired janitors at the old Fulton Grammar School. And so even though it wasn't what I guess society would call a perfect job, as I grew older, I began to realize their passion. And passion's a key word. That's what we express for their company every day. And I know my dad used to, when I was real little, he said, this place can't operate without me. And I would think in my mind, Daddy, you're a janitor, Yeah. And the older I got, the more I realized, it really couldn't operate without him. I can tell you, William, I can be gone from this company and nobody will know it. All the doors will open. It's no problem at all. You let some of our key folks, and when I say key folks, I'm not segregating anything of their responsibilities, but you let some of those be gone and it hiccups the whole company. So as I grew older, my goal in life was not to become more successful than my parents, but if I could become as successful as my parents. And the big thing is because they loved what they done and they were able to touch so many people in their lives. And my mom was tragically killed in an automobile accident when she was 68 years old. And I remember the local funeral home saying it was one of the largest visitations they could remember. There were some 850 people that come to her visitation, signed the book, and signed the I guess you could call it the book. But and the thing of it is, this was a lady that was a retired janitor. She never drove in her life. I never saw her drive. The only places she went after she retired was church and to get groceries. And so to impact that many people by not ever going anywhere, being a janitor at a school, I thought, impacting people is leadership. It really is. And so I don't know, like I said, I've had this crazy life. I've been tremendously blessed. 31 years ago, I was working a midnight shift at one of the local manufacturing facilities, Mueller Copper Tube, and was planning on being there the rest of my life. And was praying about an opportunity to work for at a day shift job. And So got an opportunity with the local power association, but they start, the starting pay there was minimum wage for the first month. So I was making $9.13 an hour, and I had to take a job, and this was in 1991. So minimum wage in 91 was $3.85. So complaining about minimum wage today, just go back 31 years ago. So I made the smart economic decision of taking a job with making nearly $6 an hour less than what I was currently making. And so I loved the job. And of course, as you were there for a time period, the pay progressed. I did bid on their mowing. I mowed their all of their substations and both of their offices to make up for the difference in the income. But I was blessed. I always thought, I told our kids as they were coming up, I think there's two things in life that make you successful, and that's attitude and opportunities. And God will provide the opportunities. Guess who the attitude's left up to? So I had some of the people that I was working with at the Power Association approached me about running for political office, and I was 30 years old, and it was for in Mississippi we don't have county commissioners, we have county supervisors, so they're split up into 5 districts. And so I run for political office. I was 30 years old, and I don't know, some way or another I won. I convinced people to vote for me. I won by 9 votes. And during that time period, I'd always wanted to finish my degree. I went back to school, drove some 300 trips of 80 something miles one way to finish my degree over a 2.5-year period, and finished my degree at the University of Mississippi. Got into banking, and I don't know, the rest is history. It's it's, if you would have told me 31 years ago, you'd be the CEO of a bank, I'd told you was crazy. But
Tommy, I love your story because it's not just up and to the right. It's not something that like you didn't expect it, you didn't see it coming, and I doubt anybody around you did either. And yet, every opportunity that you saw, you leaned into. If this was going to take you one step farther, you leaned into it. And the attitude that you had through all of it, that is such a key to success. I love what you said there, attitude and opportunity. And you didn't let either one of those slip outside of your control. You said, hey, if I see an opportunity, I'm going to pursue it. And that attitude that you carried through it, what an inspiration. And I mean, to go from where you were at Mueller Brass 31 years ago to where you are now, what a testament. I love that. How would you, and you've seen leadership in so many different contexts through your journey, how would you define leadership?
I think basically it's just getting buy-in from others. I know Colin Powell, someone asked him once what the essence of leadership was, and he said trust. If folks trust you, they're going to follow you. Yeah. I think you set goals. You don't only set goals, but you've got to know how you're going to accomplish those with a team approach. I'm not smart enough to tell our folks, hey, this is your goal, you accomplish it. No, how are we going to accomplish it? Yeah. And I know, and the thing of it is, you will never get there. You'll never. And I tell our folks, you never say never, but there's 3 nevers that I tell our folks, and ask for 2 nevers in return. I'll never ask you to do something I'm not willing to do myself. It'll never be about me, and I'll never forget where I come from. And the 2 nevers I ask in return is never lose the passion and never peak. So getting buy-in and trust from others, I think, is the definition.
So good. So good. What does leadership look like in your context as a leader of a bank?
Well, I think transparency is always the best form of communication. We tell our folks, you're going to be empowered and you're going to be informed. I know we were writing our strategic plan, and so we were going through the SWOT analysis. And of course, most all companies, their strengths or their greatest assets, they're going to say is going to be their employees. And they truly are. I mean, the employees are your greatest asset. But guess what the biggest weakness was? Communication. Well, if your greatest asset is your employees and your biggest weakness is communication, something doesn't add up. And so we started doing things like, as we wrote our strategic plan, we shared our strategic plan with our employees, something we'd never done before. And the thing of it is, if you don't share your vision, how can you expect someone to buy into it?
That's good. That's so good. What was the response like? Like when you did this for the very first time and you shared this strategic vision and you included them in that, what was the response like from your team?
So you can do surveys in most companies and say, okay, what are the most important things, in your job environment or whatever. And, usually pay is going to be like number 3 on the list. It's important to the atmosphere, how you make them feel. Do you feel important? So I guess the result of it was our company has had phenomenal growth because everyone feels their part is important, and it is important. If I pull up to your church today and never been there before, and I'm gonna think, who has the most important job at this church? You're gonna think, well, it's William Ottawa, but and that's fine unless the doors are locked and we can't get in, or the yard needs mowing, or the windows need cleaning, or the floors need sweeping, or whatever. Then all of a sudden it becomes those people's are the most important people in that company. So you can never say, hey, my job is not important. For us to exist, your job is important.
In your context, what has been your greatest challenge as a leader?
I think understanding the importance of the people we lead. I've told our senior management team now, I drawed on a whiteboard once a ship, because leadership, that's truly what you're doing, is leading a ship. Now, William, I'm not an artist. My ship looked more like a banana that had been in a war zone. But the thing about a ship is the employees are the propeller. I don't care what kind of engine you put in a ship, whatever you do, you can go nowhere without the propeller. And our senior management team, I told them, we're leading the ship. They are the propeller. We're the anchor. When things get rough, we have to stabilize things. We're the anchor. The only thing about it is the propeller will never become dead weight. The anchor could become dead weight, and we never want to be dead weight.
That's good.
So I think just the greatest challenge is just to make sure that, you never lose the importance and understanding of your people. Because again, going back to, are they truly your greatest asset? We may say that sometimes, but we don't live it. And saying it without living it is not going to get the respect from your employees.
That's good. I talk a lot about building up people and building up teams, and the importance of making sure that your team members know they are valued not just for what they do, but as individuals, as people, as actual 3D human beings who have lives beyond what they do at the office. And what I hear in you is a commitment to that, to seeing people for who they are and investing in them and pouring into them. And I think what you're seeing is people respond to that. They don't just feel like cogs in a machine. They feel like valued members of the team.
Yeah, that's right. I'm just not smart enough to do it any other way. And I think we have a phenomenal social media presence, and we have a good crew that puts that together. But I've always said, hey, look, I only want us to put on social media what's true. Because when it looks like our folks are having fun, I want it to be they're really having fun or sharing in the community or whatever.
I'll tell you, from the outside, it looks like you're having fun. That's one of the things I love about watching what's going on through your social media presence. It looks like your team is having fun. And that's not always true with the organizations that I look at.
Yeah.
You and I met earlier this year to talk about your leadership journey. And that was such an honor to spend some time with you. How have you seen your leadership personally change over time?
Well, I would hope the gray equals maturity, because, there's been different things that there's things you have to do different. I think the key word in your question is change. I don't know who your favorite football team is. Of course, in Mississippi, we're big Southeastern Conference folks.
I'm a Roll Tide guy,
There you go. Okay, so I can assure you, and it's interesting you say Roll Tide because, but Nick Saban said, when they start changing for the next year is immediately after the previous year has been over. Yep. So if Alabama is going to win the national championship this year, or Georgia, or whoever, I can assure you they're probably not going to win it with the wishbone offense, right? But if you go back 50 years ago, everybody, the top teams in the country, including Alabama, they won with the wishbone offense.
That's right.
Well, if it was good for 50 years ago, why would it not still be good today? So you have to adapt, you have to change, you have to be willing to change, which is a scary word sometimes. Our senior management team had inherited, some financial issues, regulatory issues, operational issues. Other than that, everything was smooth. But one thing that we recognized was we just had to change the way we were doing things. You can't expect a different result if you don't change. And I think there's three things that can be detrimental to the company. One is to say it's not my job. Another to say it's only one customer. And then another is to say we've always done it that way.
That's so good. Listeners, I hope you're writing those down. There have been so many nuggets in this interview. I hope you're capturing these because this is wisdom. Tommy, if you could share one piece of advice with the leaders who are listening today, what would that be?
I would think just learn from your mistakes because you're going to make them. You're not perfect. What is the saying? When you think you're the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room.
That's right.
So certainly allow other folks to share ideas, and collective ideas creates enormous visions. But just learn from your mistakes. As we say down south, don't get kicked by the same mule twice.
That's right. Well said. Every leader I know loves collecting quotes, and they remember things, they share things that they read or hear. Do you have a favorite quote that you'd love to leave the audience with?
Oh, goodness. I have so many quotes. I guess one of my favorite, though, is if you say you can, if you say you can't, usually you're always right.
Henry Ford. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I would, my favorite, to me, the greatest leadership advice ever given was, back Solomon, one thing that Solomon asked for, he had was his great wisdom. And, the wisest man in the world, and God blessed him with it. But as you go forward, he had 700 wives and 300 concubines, and he started doing the things that God said don't do, and which ultimately led in the split of the 12 tribes of Israel. And so Jeroboam and Rehoboam was Solomon's son, and Jeroboam, of course, was one of the servants at one time. He worked his way up, and Jeroboam was over the 10 northern tribes, and Rehoboam was Solomon's son, and he took over after Solomon's death. And Rehoboam was over the two southern tribes, and which was called Judah.
Mm-hmm.
So, when Jeroboam come with a group to Rehoboam, and he said, "Look, your dad was hard on us. We want you to be easier on us, and so we want to know how you're going to go forward." And Rehoboam said, "Give me 3 days, and I'll give you a response." And so the first thing he done was he went to the elders and he said, "What should I do?" And here is the greatest leadership advice ever given. And it comes from 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 7. And it says, "They spake unto him, saying, If thou wilt be a servant unto the people this day, and wilt serve them, and answer them, and speak good words to them, then they will be thy servants forever." Of course, he's not talking about, getting down and brushing their shoes or whatever, but it's just taking someone by the hand and saying, "How can I help? Let me serve you. How can I help?" Of course, Jesus's leadership approach was unknown to mankind because he led by serving. So, what they were saying here is lead by serving, be patient with people, speak nice to them, and they will serve you, or in this case, they will follow you forever. Because the key thing is, going back to the definition of leadership, to me, is getting buy-in from the people.
Tommy, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners today?
Yes, I would. By all means, buy William Attaway's Catalytic Leadership book. I really enjoy the book, William. There are so many takeaways, so much truth, and you can tell you've studied and you've interviewed folks, and you've really put all that together. It's a great book. I really like it, and by all means, get William's book. The part that just really jumps out at me, and especially in a sales environment like our business, is you say, growth has to be pursued. It has to be intentional. And that is so true. Growth has to be pursued, and it has to be intentional.
Well, man, thank you. That's very kind. I appreciate that. Tommy, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today and for sharing so generously with the people who are listening. I know our listeners are going to want to stay connected with you. What's the best way for them to do that?
Oh, goodness. On Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram.
Just look for Tommy Chamblee.
Yeah. Just look for the right one. I may have some folks out there that might not be a good connection. No, I'm kidding. I'm really. Or you can look at First American National Bank, and we're actually headquartered in Iuka, Mississippi,
Well, I will put all those connection links in the show notes so folks can find you and stay connected and continue learning from you. Thank you so much for your time today, Tommy.
Thank you, William.
My goodness, there is so much wisdom that we just heard. I hope that you were taking notes. You can always go back and listen again, jot down the things that jumped out at you that will help you in your own leadership journey. I want to thank you for joining me for this episode today. As we wrap up, I've got a request for you. I'd love for you to do 2 things. First, subscribe to this podcast so that you don't miss a new episode when it comes out. If you find value here, I'd love it if you would rate it and review it. That really does make a difference in helping other people to find this podcast. Second, if you don't have a copy of my newest book, Catalytic Leadership, if you'll go to catalyticleadershipbook.com, we'll give you one for free. You just pay the shipping so I can get it to you, and we'll put one in your hands. My goal is to get this into the hands of as many leaders as possible. This book captures principles that I've learned in 20 plus years of coaching leaders, as well as from my own leadership journey. I want to help you to become better as a leader. This book is one of the tools that I use to help do that. You can always stay connected with me on LinkedIn. Just look for William Attaway to keep up with what I'm learning and thinking about currently. And if you're ready to take your next step with a coach to help you to grow and thrive intentionally, I'd be honored to be your coach. Just go to catalyticleadership.net and you can book a discovery call with me. Let's explore and see if it's a good fit. Now, stay tuned. Our next episode of the Catalytic Leadership Podcast will be next week. Until then, as always, leaders, choose to be catalytic.
Thanks for listening to Catalytic Leadership with Dr. William Attaway. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode. Want more? Go to catalyticleadership.net.